Good morning, everyone. I'm New Center Maine's Don Kerrigan, sitting in for Pat Callahan this morning for this week's edition of Political Brew. We're joined by our analyst, Republican Phil Harriman, Democrat Betsy Sweet. Thank you both for being with us this week. Too bad there isn't a lot to talk about, huh?
Nothing going on.
A hectic week once again in this campaign season. Let's start by talking about these Senate hearings for Amy Coney Barrett, Supreme Court nominee. First of all, overall impression.
Well, I think it proved that the nominee has the intellect and the pedigree and the temperament to be a Supreme Court justice. I was very impressed with Amy's way she's handled herself, her ability to communicate her thoughts. And I also think she was very respectful to the environment she was in, which it's a Senate hearing, which had a combination of confirmation process and some political influencing or grandstanding. I thought she kept herself above that fray and did a great job of presenting why she's worthy of being
grandstanding by U.S. senators? Really?
Well, on occasion.
Betsy, what's your take on that?
Oh yeah, I think she's obviously very smart attorney. She's, she handled herself incredibly well. I think it's unfortunate for her that she has been pulled into this sort of kabuki theater, political theater of pushing this nomination forward at a time when pretty much everybody, I think Phil and I even agree on this about, this is not the time to be doing a Supreme Court nomination. And I think that both parties using her confirmation process as political theater was really unfortunate for her. I think she was very adept at not answering questions and not really talking about what she was going to do or what her philosophy was. But I think she's clearly a very smart, incredible attorney. And I think it's a shame that this is going forward. And I think it's a shame that both sides are using it as political theater.
But if this were happening in late November, how different would it be?
Well, I think that depends, Don, on who wins the election. If Donald Trump wins, then this will be a non-event. If Joe Biden wins and she was confirmed between the election day and inauguration day, that probably fuels the conversation by the Democrats again to say we need to add more Supreme Court justices to the court so that we can have a court with a liberal pedigree on it. It's unfortunate.
Yeah, and I think that the politicization of the court like this is really smacks in the face of what was intended, but have three independent branches of government. And and I think that this politicizing of this is terrible. The reality is we were facing a more conservative court than we have since the 1930s, putting at risk the rights of hundreds and millions of Americans who have hard-fought victories over the last 30 years, 40 years.
But what struck me watching a little bit of this, and I didn't get to see much, and thinking of Justice Ginsburg, I mean, she had a background as an activist when she went on the court. And many people who agree with her positions were happy she was there. I'm sure there are others unhappy that she was there. So really, is this now just the situation with any justice? Are we simply going to have two armed camps, and it just depends who's in power at any one time?
And who dies, right? With lifetime appointments to the Supreme Court, who's going to get an appointment or not? And the fact that this president has gotten three is, in my view, most unfortunate.
Yeah, Phil?
Well, I think the other side of it is that it invites for Amy and future nominees to demonstrate through their experience and their pedigree, and in fact, the court cases that they have decided in actual court. And that's the way we should be selecting Supreme Court justices, not by their party affiliations or how they view certain hot button political issues, but do they have the capacity and the capability to listen open-mindedly to a court hearing where someone is looking for a verdict or a judgment and do it in an impartial way. That should be the standard regardless of your party affiliation.
Quick, let's switch gears here for a moment. COVID relief funding, the Congress still hasn't done anything. We have Senate Republicans saying they'll go support one number, the White House saying they'll support a different one, Democrats in the House saying they want another one. and nothing seems to be happening. Will there be any action taken, Betsy?
No, no, I don't think so. And I mean, talk about political theater. This is really a tragedy for so many thousands of people in Maine who can't pay their rent, for small businesses. I mean, drive down any main street in Maine, you see businesses shuttered. People can't pay their rent. It's just people are losing jobs. Unemployment numbers are continuing up and steady, as well as still needing more testing and more contact tracing. So this is really a incredible failure on the part of the president and I think Congress together to not be able to figure out how to come together on this. And I think a lot of this rests in the Senate.
I see it the same way, but maybe with a different shade of color on it. I think Nancy Pelosi's position of needing this significantly higher number to allow the House to vote on it has created this impasse. And I can't help but think that it's for election purposes to favor her party or a particular candidate. And they've forgotten that the government is about we, the people, not you and your reelection. And I think that comes through to everyone. And I wouldn't single out any one particular branch of government. They all have forgotten that they're here to serve us.
Well, and I wouldn't single out either party. I mean, I think they're both guilty of that. And and meanwhile, you're right. We, the people, are the ones that are suffering.
A new Maine poll out this week by Pan Atlantic Polling showing Sarah Gideon up by 7 points in the U.S. Senate race against Senator Susan Collins. First of all, I talked to both of you earlier in the week about this, but do you believe and agree with these numbers, Phil?
I think based on this point in time that they did this poll, which was October 2nd to the 6th, I believe that's the date. So, we're a week or more away from that date. So things are moving more fluid every day, of course, because people who have been trying to tune out all the cacophony of political messages in their television and radio and mail, and they've been kind of keeping it at bay, are now leaning in a little bit because those who haven't decided who to vote for are trying to make up their mind. And I would say that this poll is still within the margin of error. So I would say it probably tells you which way voters are leaning, but I wouldn't say it calls the election.
Yeah, Betsy, if there is this big a lead for Sarah Gideon and a relatively small number of undecideds, can Susan Collins still catch up and win this?
Oh, I think this race is very close still. As Phil said, it's a point in time. The margin of error is 6.4%. So a 7% lead, is a thin margin. I think that a lot can happen. A lot of it's going to depend on the ground game and getting people out. I think generally the Democrats do a better job at that than the Republicans, although we'll see. We saw that didn't happen 4 years ago. So I think that it's a very close race. And I think, the people that who want Senator Collins to be done need to get out and do their thing. And the same thing is true on the other side. So I think this is anybody's race at this point, and there's still a lot can happen. I think two of the key things in this poll were that 53% of the people said they were going to vote on election day, which I think is more than we expected. And then I think if you look at in ranked choice voting, if you look at where the number 2 votes go, that was the thing that was really interesting to me because it was not as I would have predicted.
So it seems like right now that this race, that nobody's going to get 50%, although of course it's possible, and that we would head for a ranked choice count, and where the independents suddenly matter.
Yeah, I think they're going to matter a lot. I think
I agree with you, Don. It illustrates two things. One, Betsy just touched upon who actually is going to go vote. It's one thing to talk to a pollster. It's another to actually go cast a ballot. And second, the people who are going to vote for Savage or Lynn, who is their second choice? That could be the determining factor of who ultimately gets elected.
Right.
Yeah.
And huge new spending numbers for the third quarter, July through September. Sarah Gideon raised $39.4 million for her campaign during that time period. Susan Collins, 8.3. That's better than a 4-to-1 advantage. What does that tell you, Betsy?
it tells me that there's way too much money in politics. I mean, I'm sorry, this is disgusting. You know, that we're going to hit over $150 million in a race that, you know, is less, I mean, in a state that only has 1 million people. So, and to me, and what are they spending it on? I mean, I don't know about you, but every one of those mail pieces that people get, I watch that go directly into the garbage can. You know, people turn off the ads. So there's too much money. I think that, I think what we're seeing though in that number is that there's a lot of people in Maine and nationally, a lot of grassroots, a lot of her dollars were small dollar donors, people who are really, really tired of the Senate majority led by Mitch McConnell, who has been a real problem in sort of letting things move forward. So I think Collins herself, but also what that represents nationally. And I think we're seeing a lot of enthusiasm and, you know, desire to really change things up in Washington.
And Phil, Senator Susan Collins is, well, this is nothing new, but she's appears to be, to some extent, just a victim of President Trump.
Well, of course, and the fact that she supported Kavanaugh's nomination to the Supreme Court started this whole effort to fund whoever was going to run against her to kickstart their campaign. But for me, Dawn, what it illustrates is just how much other people from outside of Maine think that they know best what's for the citizens of Maine, and they've descended upon us with millions and millions of dollars, as you've just described, to buy a Senate seat for their agenda in Washington. I think Maine people want the senator who is going to be able to demonstrate that they got their feet on the ground in Maine. And Betsy's exactly right. The amount of money that has come into this race is disgusting.
We're holding auctions, not elections in this country. And it's not just Maine, it's all over the country. And we see it in every Senate race, every House race, you know, the amount of money being spent when we could use that money for rent, for food, for people who are really struggling through this COVID epidemic. It's just unconscionable.
Let's quickly talk about the presidential race. President Trump in this Maine poll down about 11% to Joe Biden. And I think a couple days ago, there was a new national poll that showed the same number of Biden leading Trump. Although then we remember that 4 years ago, Hillary Clinton led Trump by about that same amount several weeks before the election. Look what happened. So is the presidential race still anybody's to win, Betsy?
I think it's a little less fluid than the Senate race. You know, when 4 years ago when this happened, you know, Trump didn't have a record. And I think now he has a record, and I think people see who he is and what he's done. And I think that some people are still obviously very strongly supporting him, but I think most people are saying not just his policies, but I think his behavior over the last, from him getting COVID to his, you know, tweets, and, you know, he just sent a terrible tweet out about Senator Collins. You know, I think that kind of disrespect for the office, people are really seeing through it and saying, you know what, this is not a presidential, you know, kind of temperament.
Okay, we're short on time. Phil, quickly, is this still anybody's race?
I think it goes back to what we talked about earlier, which is how many people actually go out and vote. And does the president have the math down properly so that he can win, which means he's got to get that one electoral college vote in the 2nd District of Maine, among others.
We'll see a lot of focus there. Quickly, winners and losers. Phil.
Let me start with the loser this week, Dawn. The former defense minister for Mexico, who served from 2012 to 2018, was arrested on drug charges and money laundering in Los Angeles. My winner this week is Amy Coney Barrett. I thought she handled herself with class and dignity, and she's clearly a winner in my book.
All right. Thank you. Betsy.
Losers are Maine people and the American people for the amount of money that's being spent on these races to hold auctions, not elections. And the winners are the people all over this country who are already waiting in line 8, 9, 10 hours a day so that they can go vote, despite voter suppression, despite attempts to keep them out. I think the people who are going and they're saying, forget the money, forget everybody else, I want my voice heard, and they're the winners.
All right. Thank you both very much for joining us. Thank all of you for joining us as well. News Center Maine continues right after this.